Okay, so here's an angle with the building now. There's wooden substructure, and you can see it's been compressed, obviously, to fit this scene. I really like this building. It balances out nice. But I want to just talk to you about a phenomenon real quick that occurs that is not easy to understand unless you're actually doing it like I'm doing it right now. Like Lance Mindheim knows about this. He wrote a really good blog on his blog site that talked about scaling, miniature photography to the prototype and how it's near impossible to do. He talked about other elements too, artistically, which I really like his articles, because Lance is not only a highly respected and accomplished model railroader, but he's also an artist. He understands art. But so if you look at this, see the building here, right? And then see up here in the photo, let me point it out for you so you can sort of see, the drop in the roof there and then the extension. That looks shorter than this, but then this one up or closer, the wide angle, looks way longer than this, right? So which one is correct? 1, 2, or 3? Well, none of them are, unless you go to the 1-to-1 prototype on location and put a tape ruler on it. Then you'll know what's correct. But this is a, like a quarter view shot. There's different lenses. Like this is 35 mil. This was a 35 mil, but at location, which is going to be different. And then this one here was like a 50 mil, I think, from a ways back. So you can't really line up the model to really any photo. It's almost impossible. Now, I wanted to show you something else about this building too. So why did I not build it square like this? Now, I could have done that. That's the easiest way to build a box, right? But what I did was I cut the rear of the building on an angle to open up the space, see? Because there's still quite a bit of room back here, and I don't want to lose all that just not take advantage of it. Like that would make a sort of a dark alleyway, but the reason why I did this was to open this up, to let more light in, and I have more, like a larger aperture here to create an alleyway scene. And I have some structures in mind already that I've had photos of from way back that I've always wanted to build, but I haven't attempted them yet, that I want to put back here. Kind of a new Westy slum back alley, failed coffee shop kind of feel. You know what I mean? And I'll just show you a quick photo of that, okay? Okay, so you get the picture there. Like that's what I'm going to create back there and then build it up like just into the backdrop. So you have this alleyway, it pulls you in, there's some interest back there. And then out here you have your regular, which is very common looking industrial railroad. Because when you're on railroads, like you don't see like, I mean, maybe there's cities in like, sorry, there's scenes, you know, a lot from the 30s, you know, and stuff with big windowed warehouses and stuff. And I know they're still around, but out here we don't have that kind of architecture around our railroads, except if you're maybe downtown Vancouver. But out in the valley, like the rural, it's not like that. It looks like this. So that's what I'm after. But I want to be able to create, like I mentioned earlier, like a background rural kind of rustic development as well. So this is the building. And like I say, I put this angle on there for good reason. You can do either, or you can do that as well. And then, you know, have a big mural paint on there. I mean, the sky's the limit, right? But it's always good to, you know, think about that as you're designing like the basic substructure, to play around with your angles, right? Because from this angle, you can see where you go up the road here and then across the tracks and then up the alley. And it just seems like a much further distance than it actually is on the model. It's all eyeball. Like that's what art is. Art deviates from like technical spec of visual in the world. And when you convey it coming from your feelings, your view, your interpretation of what you want the scene to look like, that's what artistic license is. Artistic license is where you disregard the exact height and width of things. Not ties, because we know that ties are like 8 feet by, you know, 9 by 6 or whatever, right? Like we know that already. But for buildings and things, like the actual overpass as well isn't built exactly to spec, but it's pretty close. It's close enough, right? Okay, so that's what artistic license is. Obviously, you don't build a locomotive based on just photos, right? You have access to blueprints. But this is different, right? So you're in the realm of designing and building your layout, the scene in which you want to view your model trains in. So that's going to be different for everybody. And when you're hobbling together subjects in a compressed footprint, this is what you do. But I just wanted to test that to see how close I was. And then I also found the height here. Like I was able to put a tape measure, you know, I pushed it up and pulled it down, got to 8 feet and then 64 inches. So that's 5.3 feet plus 8 is 13. Let's just say 13 and a half feet. So let's have a look at this and see what it is. I don't even know yet. I haven't measured it. Wow, okay, so that's 17 feet. So this is too high, or a little bit higher than what this is, right? But who's going to know? When this is on the layout, just because I told you, you know, but if this is on the layout, like nobody's going to care, right? It's going to be a pile of ties right here. Like who's going to care? You know, I'll put the number, the address here, like, you know. So this is what I mean, right? Like you don't have to sweat the small stuff. You want to capture the spirit of the building, right? And you want to try to get the ratio or proportions balanced out so it's visually pleasing to look at as a separate model in the chosen footprint that you've decided upon, or you're trying to squeeze in this case, okay? So I just wanted to point out that I'm using for the cinder blocks is this number 4521 metal roofing. Like, I don't use all the strips. It's an older style. Like, you have to glue these strips in place, you know, with thin cement. Like it's very accurate, you know, for metal roofing, but you can use it for cinder blocks, like these scribed lines. Like, just save the strip for other projects, but you can see the scribed lines running horizontal here, right? So this way is about 16 inches, which is what the cinder block is, 16 inches, like with that HO ruler, right? It's about 16 inches, like these scribed lines apart. So then I'm just scribing here 8 inches. So the cinder blocks are 16 by 8 inches. So I've clamped this down and I've marked all the increments. So all I do is I put my tip of my number 11 like that, and I just pass it over it 3 times. Right, just with a bit of pressure, put a nice scribe in there like that. Push it onto the mark first, then slide your machinist square up to it. 1, 2, 3. So you can vary the size of the cinder blocks or block work depending how wide your lines are, like your scribe lines, or the particular product. Like with the spacing, see 3/16 spacing, metal roofing. So this is 4521, they've got 4520, 4522, so on and so on, right? A good old evergreen, right? If you get creative with it, you can do a lot of neat stuff. Now you can get, you know, vacuum formed and pre-scribed block, but you might, I don't believe you can get, in this case, custom 16-inch by 8-inch cinder blocks that this building was made out of. And this way too, when you lay it up, like, you'll get the different variations of planes too. Like, you get a little more of a rough, when you lay these strips in, you just offset them, and you get a more rough cut kind of, well, not rough cut, but that's the way they look, right? I can show you the photo. You can see how they vary and stand out. Okay, so the actual face of the building is not perfect, right? Because the building settles over time. So the bricks move within the mortar. Okay. Whoops. So this is proof of concept, right? I'm 185 and I'm pushing down, pumping down on my model. And my models don't break, right? Okay, see? That's why I do it. I know, I mean, you don't have to do that, but that's the way I build my models. So they're boomer proof. You ever wonder why people, you know, they go, they're driving, like, let's say down the road, and you cross a track at a crossing, and you look down the, the branch line right away, and there's just a warehouse down there, and you don't give it any thought, right? Like, you just think, whatever, right? You sort of look at the track, and you just, oh, no trains today, but you never really give the building any thought, like, the more I go around hands-on, like rail fan, and just, like in the neighborhood, I mean, the more I miss out, or sorry, not miss out, but the more I find, like the more I discover, Like, if you just go down to a district, a local district, especially a branch line or a local, even an abandoned section, you just check out some of the buildings, right? Like, they're not that complicated to build, right? Like, if you don't mind building. Like if you like to have a one-off, like something that's unique, like if you want a scene that's going to be unique, like don't get me wrong, like I think Walthers and DPM are fantastic, and I use those kits and parts in my models and have in the past, and will continue to do so. But, you know, I mean, how many layouts that you see that they're just basically a Walthers layout? You know what I mean? Like, how many times can you use the same kit over and over again? You just put it in a different position or arrange it differently. Like, scratch building is really just a journey of discovery. It's not like something you have to, you know, take a course on necessarily and then wait and then just arrive suddenly. Okay, I'm ready. Like, you just start doing it. Like, that's always been what I've done, is I just said, I'm just going to try this. Right? The heck with it, right? Like, if I mess it up, then, well, whatever, right? It's no love lost. So I'll use it for something, or I'll just start another model, like, you know, or whatever. Yeah, so, you know, just trying stuff, you know, like unique models will come out in the experiment, if you can use that term. So you'll notice here that I have these register marks, so I'm able to check, right? Remember how I mentioned that? Like if I'm running out or not? But you know what's interesting about this method is if you run these strips like this that are about 6 inches long, is like no building is perfectly straight anyway. Like if this building's actually looks like it's 1/8 of a mile long, but even a long span of like 200 feet or so, like the line's not going to be perfect, you know. But I mean, this is turning out pretty good. You know, it's straight enough, right? But, you know, sometimes the path of least resistance is not the way to go, because you don't really learn a lot, you know, like when you do that. Like if you're always looking for the easy way out, right? Well, that kind of modeling, or that, excuse me, that kind of philosophy, you don't learn as much as you can learn. Like the potential's there to learn if you challenge yourself. That's what I find. You know, I mean, that's how I grow my skills, is I look at a building, like I find a simple building, and then I investigate it. And then I begin to realize, hey, wait a minute, you know, this is a cool building. And then it isn't until you really start to build it that you realize how cool it actually is, right? And it's too bad, because these kinds of buildings we take for granted, right? We basically just, it's boring, right? You know, everybody wants, like, you know, the Dairy Queen or the Starbucks coffee or Joe's Hardware, you know, whatever. We never think of just building a box up, or just, I mean, now with Google Earth, just Google Earth, find a location, go take some photos and build it up. And who cares if it's not the same footprint or it's not spec'd out the same? It doesn't matter. You're going to end up with a really cool model that's unique, a one-off that'll really make your signature scene or whatever stand out. And you'll feel pleased about it forever, because it's your creation. It's your model that nobody else has. Okay?